show is starting. The finest in underground television.
To a Skylark. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire, the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy, whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight, keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. What thou art, we know not. What is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Like a poet, hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden, till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. Like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. Like a glowworm, golden in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass, which screen it from our view. Like a rose embowered in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflowered, till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy winged thieves. Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain-awakened flowers, all that ever was, joyous and sweet and fresh, thy music doth surpass. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. Chorus, hymeneal, or triumphant chant, matched with thine, would be all but an empty vaunt, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but ne'er knew love's sad satiety. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? We look before and after, and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. Yet, if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever could come near. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain doth know. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world should listen then, as I am listening now. Shelley.
Here before you is an opportunity to plumb the depths of the mysteries that confound and intrigue us. A chance to ask the big questions. Dr. Hal is not concerned with questions of trivial matters or of facts that are easily gathered elsewhere. Dr. Hal seeks the questions that transcend fact. He stands before you, ready to take questions that used to be brought to wise and aged sages on distant mountaintops. These questions can now be asked from the comfort of your living room. No Sherpas required. Simply direct your favorite web browser to our new and simple-to-use website, AskDrHalShow.com, or click the Ask Dr. Hal button below our live Twitch broadcast. You will be spirited away to the magical Ko-Fee portal, where all you need do is submit your burning question in the handy message field, and assign a monetary value you wish to place upon it. Our stage ghost will then convey your message live to Dr. Hal, and he will answer in the manner that only Dr. Hal can. Don't worry, we never sell, share, or solicit using your provided email address. PayPal will ensure that your valuable love offering goes directly to Dr. Hal. Links to submit questions and more can be found at our website, AskDrHalShow.com. Do not let this opportunity to consult a modern-day oracle, a seer for seers, a man steeped in the arts, sciences, and esoteric studies, pass you by. We present to you, through the very miracle of the internet itself, the one and only Dr. Hal Robins, now making house calls.
Welcome, everybody. Hello, Dr. Hal. Good to see you.
Greetings and salutations.
Wow, how did we get here already? It feels like it was like last week that we did the show, but it was a month ago.
Yes, that accelerating time frame, one must expect that will continue and increase.
I guess everyone has noticed by now there are only 2 boxes this week. Professor Gofflin is off on a vision quest out in the desert, and she will be joining us on the next show. But for tonight, it will just be Dr. Hal and I. So, all of you Professor Gofflin fans out there, you'll have to just wait until next month.
And a pleasant wait it will be.
And, well,
A wait of anticipation.
Well, we'll make it pleasant enough, I suppose. But we do have questions if you would like to just kind of jump into things and get started.
That would be appropriate. We're here to answer the questions after all.
Let's change to that screen. Oh, I feel so much more comfortable in my little box over here.
Cozy.
Well, yeah, it's warm. It's this box right now is about 76 degrees. Spring has finally hit us. We've got flowers blooming.
Has sprung.
Oh, it's lovely. We are living the cartoon to spring right now, with winter fighting to stay and spring battling its own fight, and it's just we have 40
We
mile
should
an hour.
probably show that one again sometime.
I love that cartoon.
Yeah.
We have 40 mile an hour winds occasionally out there, so if anything blows up, it could happen. But I do have a question. Let me see. I have a question here. This is actually a two-part question, it turns out. This is from OK Bob OK, and the total on the question is $20. And I will begin with the $3 part of the question first. Happy belated World Sleep Day. A plethora of hysterical naysayers in anguish over the mishandling of a wombat Joey this week brings to mind the contradiction of animal love and consumption. Next page. Bear with me just a minute. As consummate crime-fighting mass criminal, I find this talking with your mouth full reactionary silliness on par with paying Fedwar tax for murder while masquerading as an Ekchian. Would Walt Whitman agree?
Well, I'm not aware of Mr. Whitman's dietary habits, but I assume that they were more or less like the constant others enjoyed in his time. Underlying the question seems to be, is it hypocritical to be concerned with the welfare of animals while we eat their flesh, let alone drink their milk and profit from them in a myriad of other ways? There is no easy answer to this conundrum, but it may be important to point out that without the human race, many of these species would not be doing as well. Chickens get completely taken care of during their lifespan, however that lifespan may conclude, and cattle are not even to give birth by themselves at this stage in their evolutionary development, but require a human to assist. Yes, these are all commensal species, flourishing because they grew up with the development of the humans and because they are needed by both the creatures and the people who do exploit them. In the long run, it's good for the species. It may be an uncomfortable reality on the final day for that creature which is chosen to sacrifice for the greater good. And yet the same may apply to the humans in this year of grace. I thank you for your question. This is a poem by Shelley, whose poem began this show. Tonight. Swiftly walk o'er the western wave, spirit of night, out of the mystic eastern cave, where all the long and lone daylight thou wovest dreams of joy and fear, making it terrible and dear. Swift be thy flight. Wrap thy form in a mantle gray, star inwrought. Bind with thy hair the eye of day. Kiss her till she be wearied out. Then wander o'er city and sea and land, touching all with thine opiate wand. Come, long sought. When I arose and saw the dawn, I sighed for thee, When day rode high, and the dews were gone, and noon lay heavy on flower and tree, and the weary day turned to his rest, lingering like an unloved guest, I sighed for thee. Thy brother Death came to me and sighed, wouldst thou me? Thy sweet child, Sleep, the filmy-eyed, murmured like a noontide bee, wouldst thou nestle by my side? Wouldst thou me? And I replied, No, not thee. Death will come when thou art dead, soon, too soon. Sleep will come when thou art fled. Of neither would I ask the boon I ask of thee, beloved night. Swift be thy approaching flight. Come soon, soon.
Beautiful, Hal. I have another multi-part question. I'm going to have to look at Ko-fi. I'm wondering if they're limiting characters. But this is a total of a $9 question. It is in 3 parts, so you'll have to bear with me while I switch between...
All right, I can recall. If I can't, perhaps you'll have to read it all together, but let's hear it.
This is a $9 question from former phlebotomist Ricky T. Tavi. And the first part of the question is, would you, Dr. Hal, be so kind as to bestow upon us the very thoughts that were rushing through your frontal lobe on that fateful day of January 21st, 1984? The night of slack, as many refer to it as, when our very own Supreme High Epopt, J.R. Bob Dobbs, was tragically felled. Stand by for part 2.
All right, I can remember that.
Let me see. In front of your own 2 eyes, what were those tremulous thoughts that circulated amongst and within your head, as the holy blood of Slack personified spewed from within his lead-punctured chest and onto your distraught expression, your hands quivering whilst continuing to... Stand by for page 3.
Keep going.
Clutch onto your microphone, falling down to your knees where Bob lay before you, covering yourself in his blood as you sense for any signs of life, trying your damnedest as you pound your fist upon him in vain as an attempt at resuscitation. This, Dr. Hal, is my question to you.
Well, I believe I can put those 3 together. They are about the famous assassination of J.R. Bob Dobbs that took place at the Victoria Theater in San Francisco on 16th Street on the 22nd of January, 1984. Of course, the date of the show itself, which began on the 21st, happens to coincide with the date of the execution of the King of France, the ill-fated Louis XVI. Surely a historical coincidence. Sometimes it has been said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. However, the choreography, as described by this questioner, slightly differs from the way I remember it. We were doing this show kind of improvising a lot of it, and I was not facing Dobbs, I was facing the audience. First I introduced Dobbs and I stepped aside and the curtain started to rise, and then the curtain went down a little bit. And then it went up a little bit, and it finally went up all the way. And as Bob walked out on the stage, I was stepping back, but not exactly looking at him, and I heard popping noises, and I just didn't understand what was going on because it was all being improvised. And even when I did see him fall down, I still thought this was some sort of improvisation. But tragically, it proved to be more than that, as puzzling evidence seized the microphone and began to rant about how the show was not about him but about Bob, and so Bob had to be assassinated, and he didn't get very many words out before Bob Black smashed a bottle against Puzzling Evidence's skull, and he was down for the count. The stage was chaos. Now, I did not give Bob any kind of cardio resuscitation attempt. Somebody did. I can't remember who, but I did pick up Bob's pipe, which was horribly and tragically broken in two at that terrible moment. Curiously enough, less than a year later, I was on another stage and Bob was introduced, and well, he came out. Perhaps it was a clone of the EPOP. Perhaps the clone was assassinated. However, the assassination of Bob has been ritually enacted in many shows since, perhaps blurring the distinction of which was the original one. As for me, as sad as I was at this turn of events, I always feel the show must go on. So I even made a little speech afterwards, which the annals of the occasion record. I hope this has, in some respect, remediated your curiosity about that terrible day.
Oh my goodness, my camera has gone. I've got a new cameraman today. There we go.
Oh, yes.
Sort of
They
works.
anticipate you.
I need to, there we go. He's working again. See that? He follows me.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, but don't let him get a fix on Bob in the corner or Edgar Allan Poe over to your right.
It did that yesterday. It was like, oh, I'm just going to stare at Bob. I'm over here. I don't want to do that either because it'll all of a sudden. It's a robot that's doing all this. It's a little camera that's just following. It's very cool, actually.
Well, they're learning. They're in the infancy of their species.
Yes, they are. They're watching everything we do. Now, Hal, I do have more questions in the queue, and I have one here that is not a question. It is an offering for a question. So it comes from our very good friend, Dr. Billy. Now, let me scroll down to it here.
The band leader of the Empire Jazz Orchestra.
The very
our
same,
own Dr. Billy.
Our very own Dr. Billy. And he says he's just sending along a respect offering of $15 and perhaps sponsoring someone else's query this month while I work on formulating future questions. So, audience.
That's good. We'll see.
Get that into the show chat, and our stage ghost, St. Joyce, will make sure that that question gets over to me. And in the meantime, Dr. Hal, I think we should do our first monster movie moment.
A good idea. As viewers of this show know, we periodically present monster movie excerpts, which I narrate. And this will be one of those.
This is actually an encore one that we did a while back. These things, you know, they're just worth showing again. So we want people to see them. It's cool stuff. The movies are very cool. But the main reason for this is audience. It's to give you time to get those questions into Dr. Hal. We will answer all of your questions this evening. We love to get those questions. Dr. Hal actually will get painful headaches if we do not bleed off the answers that are swimming around in his head. So you are doing everyone a favor and you're keeping the good doctor healthy by milking those question glands. So audience, get those questions in. And here is our first monster movie moment of the evening.
Not that way. Quicksand! Quicksand!
It's, it's such a wonderful movie. House of Frankenstein, folks. If
Yes.
you haven't watched it for a long time, it's worth. It's all those Universal monster movies. They are just the epitome of what a monster movie should be. They're just fun
Well,
and
I prefer it to House of Dracula, which itself has its moments, but they both set you up for Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, Jerry Garcia's favorite movie.
yeah. Imagine that. Well, I do have more questions for you, Dr. Hal, and
Excellent.
I have one here from I Forgot. That is their name. It's not me saying that.
Hmm.
It is their name. It is a $16 question.
Very good.
And the question is, when is it and how can it be? And is there anything that we can do about it?
Uh, it will come when it will come, as the ancient saying used to be. Yes, we know not when the master cometh. When, according to the pre-Raphaelite painting, Jesus carrying a lantern will be out there knocking on your door. Because the scripture itself, if you like your Bible story, says that no one will know when the ultimate day is imminent, when the dreadful judge in middle air shall spread his throne, when the seas shall become part blood and monsters shall walk the earth. No, no one knows, and that is why anyone who claims to know, any tin pot prophet who claims that he alone has the key to when the end will be there, is bogus according to his own fixed set of rules. They are not my rules and probably yours, but generally human experience seems to suggest that we are in a steady state of existence, prompted by a marvelous sun that never suddenly gets too big or too small and continues its hydrogen helium fusion reaction at exactly the same state, giving us the energy for all that we do. But I believe it was no other than Bertrand Russell who said just because things have always been this way, I'm paraphrasing, that doesn't indicate that they always will. Even that the sun shall rise in the next morning is not predicated with extreme confidence. Now, as for the last part of it, what shall we do about it? We are perhaps ants in an anthill where they're pouring gasoline on top of it. So nothing can be done about it. I am reminded of a comic strip, an old one by Bob Powell, where he posits a giant monster comes and eats the sun, and people on Earth watch helplessly as the huge creature envelops and chews the sun. And from a window, one woman is leaning and saying, "Why doesn't somebody do something?" Well, lady, if somebody could do something about a macrocosmic event, they would, but they can't. And I fear we must be stoic enough to endure the going hints not only of all we love, but of ourselves as well. Thank you for your question. This is a poem by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. In Goya's greatest scenes, we seem to see the people of the world exactly at the moment when they first attained the title of suffering humanity. They writhe upon the page in a veritable rage of adversity, heaped up, groaning with babies and bayonets under cement skies in an abstract landscape of blasted trees. bent statues, bats' wings and beaks, slippery gibbets, cadavers and carnivorous cocks, and all the final hollering monsters of the imagination of disaster. They are so bloody real. It is as if they really still existed. And they do. Only the landscape is changed. They still are arranged along the roads, plagued by legionnaires, false windmills, and demented roosters. They are the same people, only further from home, on freeways 50 lanes wide, on a concrete continent, spaced with bland billboards illustrating imbecile illusions of happiness. The scene shows fewer tumbrils, but more strung-out citizens in painted cars, and they have strange license plates and engines that devour America.
Cool. Good poem, Hal. I have a question here from our very good friend, Dr. Penny.
Oh, great.
It is a $21 question.
Good friend of the show.
Yes, indeed. And let me see. Oh, it is a question of great depth. When a loved one either passes or the love is no longer returned, is it better to remember love or attempt to forget all about it?
My choice is to remember the love, since everything is transitory. One does not need to remind one's self that one is bereft of love. This is something which one tends to keep in mind. But by concentrating on the joy, perhaps we get the opportunity to recapitulate it. This is certainly what I hope in my own case. So I do not advise forgetting what is impossible to forget, or remembering what there is no need to remember, but only to wait and see what comes, however banal that response might seem. But I hope that it serves in some way. This is by Keats. Bright star. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou wert, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, yet watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless eremite, the moving waters at their priest-like task of pure ablution round earth's human shores, or gazing on the new soft fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and the moors. No, yet still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft swell and fall, awake forever with a sweet unrest, still to hear thy tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death.
Most excellent, Hal. I have for you a $3 question from an anonymous Ko-fi supporter.
Anonymous, eh?
And I want to remind the audience, too, that we have an offer of a free question out there. So if anybody has something burning in their brain that they'd like to ask the doctor, it is on the floor. Please feel free
and
to
you
get
may
it.
be anonymous, so we will not dead name you. We'll simply endeavor to answer your query.
But if you give me your name, I'm going to read it. Let's
Well,
see.
The assumed name, the false name, the
Hmm.
nom de plume, the name of the show.
We had Professor Gofflin and I have a little game that we've been playing back and forth, coming up with subgenius names. I think we have a whole list of them sitting somewhere. But this is My Dear Dr. Hal. Will the great asteroid relieve us from our woes anytime soon? If not, what will the next week look like? And that is, again, a $3 question, Dr. Hal.
Well, no asteroid is scheduled to arrive next week. However, in 2033, one is coming that you may have heard about. Science says that the chances that it will not hit the planet are pretty good, more great than the chance that they will hit the planet, but it is difficult to determine the path of this object, which is coming in closer to the sun. One reason that the calculation is hard to make is that there's no telling whether or not it will hit some other piece of space junk and deflect its motion, perhaps fortunately for us, perhaps fatally for us. On its current trajectory, if it hits the Earth when it interrupts the orbital plane of the Earth, the science people say that it will probably hit in the ocean, or if it hits on land, it will strike the Indian subcontinent, and a terrible thing for them, of course. But it wouldn't be a good idea to have it hit at all. Its effect would probably be a repercussion that we feel worldwide. Still, until it gets close to 2033, unless all science programs are cut by Trump, still we will have them from other countries if we can get to them. And it is possible that we might even be able to do some deflection by deep space maneuvering. 2033 seems far away, but it isn't that far away. It is less than 10 years, of course. As for next week, expect scattered thunder showers and mild winds with temperatures cresting by day and still some coolness by night. In the middle states, the possibility of windstorms and even tornadoes. But for the rest of the country, a blank calm of nothingness, which only portends by its emptiness that something will shortly arrive to fill it.
Well, with that, we have something special.
Oh, good.
We got a command from Reverend Ivan Stang himself to get the
This
word
liquid
out.
stride.
The very same. And not only that, but Reverend Onan Canabite also participated in this very important message.
The
And
editor of the Dobbstown Mirror newspaper.
the very same. And we wanted to show it this evening because, well, they wanted us to get the word out. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, guests, we have for you tonight a question that has been burning in everyone's mind. So, with that too, this is also an opportunity to get more questions into the doctor. We have plenty of time. We have plenty of space. We are sitting here on this three-dimensional plane with the fourth dimension of time, and we are in full control of everything. So, get those questions in, and here comes Reverend Ivan Stang and Reverend Conan Onenbite. Onan Canabite.
UFOs, heaven or hell.
Indeed.
Back in the office, the editor and artist concentrate next on one of the spectacular covers that make their magazine famous among industrial journalists everywhere. It's the rule in this office to pay special attention to the covers, to make them as eye-catching, as attractive as possible, so that the reader will want to find out more inside. Employee publications, like newspapers and magazines of other kinds, must be read to be worthwhile. Unless the information is presented in an interesting manner, gaining a wide audience, the whole operation can be a costly waste.
Well, that certainly says it all, doesn't it?
Magnificent. Thank you, Reverend Stang and Reverend Onan, for that.
Yes, to Stang and Onan, we lift our metaphoric glasses high.
And I would like to point everyone out to the ad there for the Dobbstown Mirror. We also
Yes.
have Reverend Xenofact's Vault of Slack. Hopefully we can get some kind of card up for that where you can go and get that. But we have another.
They just came
zine
out
up
with
there.
an issue, which I read from on my last Radio Valencia radio show.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yep. Everyone, it looks like all the zines in Subgenius land are doing rather well, and they're getting readership and all that stuff. I'm very happy to see it. But we have zines out there. We have actually a new feature that I believe we're going to be adding next month, where we're going to have a kind of a wall of Subgenius resources, which those things are published elsewhere on other places, and we just thought it would be a great place to do it here. In case we're getting those edge people that don't know where everything else is, we can help be a conduit to get you to where you need to be.
And at a future time, we will probably bring back the Subgenius newsreel, which we showed in a number of our previous episodes.
Yeah, Odd on the March will be returning. Professor Gofflin is I think she's retooling a couple of things and relooking at some stuff, but
Yes.
that will be returning. So as soon as she gets back from the desert, who knows? She might be jumping right back on working with Odd on the March. But we will see, because we will have our first planning meeting next week for the upcoming show.
Anything can happen in the desert, as some of us are aware.
One never knows. I have a question here. It is a $15 question from none other than the person whose zine I just mentioned, Reverend Xenofact, our very own Reverend Xenofact. And let me go scroll through here and grab that question. There it is. Dr. Hal, religious history provides us with any number of convenient gods and goddesses. For the theistic subgenius, what are the most subgenius-like deities in your extensive knowledge?
Well, we encounter those deities through printed material, through legends and legendary lore, and through the ecstatic accounts of subgenius visionaries and saints. The Church of the Subgenius began as words on paper and persists as words, whether pixelated or transposed by the mail or other methods of being carried. However, this is the framework of our guidance. So there is, of course, the creator of the pre-scriptures, Jehovah One, the cosmic space god who communicated directly to J.R. Bob Dobbs himself when he was messing around with the back of a TV set which he had invented or modified, and received a great shock, the divine immaculation, we call it, where he heard the voice of Jehovah One enunciating the pre-scriptures as they appeared in the Book of the Subgenius and have been appearing in subsequent Subgenius publications. And there are films like the one that we just saw. We expect these beings to manifest themselves in created works. And we have many creators whose work we consider canonical. One of them, let me remind everyone, is Stanislaw Zukalski, whose book Behold the Proton illuminated the consideration of the Yeti as a subgenius ancestor, although that was not what Mr. Zukalski himself intended. It is us to the interpreting group who are deriving this information, not necessarily even those who are producing it. What about Basil Wolverton, a cartoonist who is normally thought to be a creator of funny, rubbery faces and grotesques, but that's because his eerie, profound, and frightening science fiction and horror comics entirely originated, drawn, and lettered by him are not better known. Although somewhere I've got a Wolverton comic in 3D, if I could only dig it out. That is a profound experience. So we are guided by the words which remain rather than the memories that flee. And there is a final aspect, which is direct experience. Just as Dobbs received direct communication from the Ancient of Days, we, by meditative practices and other rituals, are often able to be on the same page. And it should help in this year of grace, when the fabric of truth itself is rent in so many places. Please remind me of the amount that Xenofact provided.
That was a $15 question, Dr. Hal.
Well, that is noble of him to do that. Here are some very short poems, lyrics actually, by Edward Gorey. Let me see. How about this one? Each night, Father fills me with dread as he sits at the foot of my bed. It's not just that he speaks, but in gibbers and squeaks. But for 17 years, he's been dead. Or, there was a young curate whose brain was deranged from the use of cocaine. He lured a small child to a copse dark and wild, where he beat it to death with his cane. The babe, with a cry brief and dismal, fell into its water baptismal. Ere they'd gathered its plight, it had sunk out of sight, for the depth of the font was abysmal. All right. The first child of a Mrs. Keats Shelley came to light with its face in its belly. Her second was born with a hump and a horn, and her third was as shapeless as jelly. Well, I think you get the idea. I'll do one more. To his club-footed child, said Lord Stipple, as he poured his postprandial tipple, your mother's behavior offended our Savior, and that's why he made you a cripple. All right, I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
I don't know if beautiful for that recitation quite fit, but
I was
gory.
only taking the mild ones, not the not the really savage ones.
Yeah. What's not to like about Edward Gorey?
Well, he illustrates them too in his book, The Gashly Crumb Tinies and Others.
Wonderful.
There's a proto-subgenius for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him and Charles Addams, they kind of they have that lovely morbid sense for things.
One has access to the complete Charles Adams cartoons. You can get a disc with all the cartoons from the New Yorker on it if you buy the giant book of New Yorker cartoons. And some of Adams' cartoons you can't see these days unless they're in a book, which may cost more than $100.
Hmm. Well, I do have questions, Dr. Hal. Actually,
That is
our queue is looking very healthy, but audience, you can still get more in. Dr. Hal will answer them.
all right.
So don't hesitate. And remember, there's a freebie out there too floating around. So if somebody just wants to toss a question out there for the doctor to answer, it's a $15 question. So
To divert a little from that, isn't it true that we may be giving away more valuable prizes in future iterations of this show?
we have a couple of things that are coming up. Would you like me to preview what we have coming up?
I would appreciate it. I hope the viewers would not be bored.
We have a little planning involved, but this is one of the things I happen to have sitting right here on my.
Oh, yes,
bench.
the Yeti is on that button.
Here, I will use a rare button. I will use the
Yeah.
pressure close-up button. There it is.
Yeti is described in Revelation X, the Bob Apocryphon.
I'm
So
surprised.
you never know
Oh, sorry. Go
what you
ahead.
can get from us. That's all I was going to
That's
say.
one thing. And actually, let me duck over here for just a second. I'm going to do a cardinal rule and walk out of camera. I'll be right back.
I thought the robo camera would follow you.
It probably did.
Well, we're
Oh.
going to be giving away stuff at any rate.
And here is something else that will be coming out
Oh,
here soon.
the
Oh, there
Bob
it goes.
stencil. The Bob stencil. Well, it's looking at Edgar Allan Poe's face over there, I think. There we are. Look at that. Boy, how that will come in handy to street taggers worldwide. A great contribution to the current state of society.
For
And-
any. Oh, go ahead, Hal. I'm sorry.
Well, and you'll be able to get those by communicating with this show.
And we'll be working out the details probably for the next show. We also have stickers, we have kitchen magnets, we have all kinds of stuff with the Good Doctor's logo pasted
And
all over.
surprises we're going to be introducing in our next show also.
But St. Joyce uses a what's called a cricket for her sewing project, but it cuts really nice stencils.
It does.
So this is a slightly modified version of the original Dobbs stencil that I put together, so all the pieces are actually attached to the cardboard.
Have you tried it? Tried making a face, and it comes out right? Great.
St. Andrew should be able to let you know here shortly how well the faces have worked out for him. I sent him a pile of them.
All right.
So
He's a worthy. Yeah.
that's where I got the idea. Well, you know what? These fit in an envelope. Easy peasy. So coming up, audience, not this month, but probably next, we'll give you the details on those upcoming show premiums that we have not offered in a long time. Since we don't have anybody able to sip from our bottle of Frenet, is it?
Yes, we don't have a bottle of Fernet. That happens during the live show, or used to happen.
We have never figured out how to do it in the home version. Unless you get your own, of course, and then sip it at your leisure.
And take a sip every time we return to an often used topic.
Right.
A subgenius drinking game.
But I have questions for you.
All right.
The next one is from our good friend, Mob Miati. It is a $24 question.
Really?
Let me see. I'm going to scroll down to it here. If they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?
If they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in a dry? The same things shall be done, but more desperately, more savagely, more competitively, because the abundance of resources is that closely connected by a hidden yet unbreakable umbilicus. And it is possible, rather a lot possible, that we're about to enter into a period of food scarcity, since we have attacked agriculture, keeping the uh, food from being harvested. We're not sending it to our trade partners, and we're not receiving all that we usually receive from our trade partners, because that is to say, the administration in Washington, have insulted them for no particular reason, just a bully who likes to throw his weight around. I've often thought that all the people I see at fancy restaurants photographing their dinners and posting them on Facebook may be, when the true desperation starts, hunted down and punished for such excess, which is why I dislike to participate in such photographs. Besides, I hate to have myself photographed while eating. At any rate, the green tree supports us all, but it can become dry, partly because of our lack of support. And then, trending back to us, the true lack of support will be apprehended. And I don't like to sound like such an unpleasant prophet, but this is the likelihood that anyone knows who has studied history. And here, this poem, a famous one, harkens back to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, our best president. "O Captain, my captain, the fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every wrack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. O Captain, my captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills, for you bouquets and ribboned wreaths, for you the shores are crowding, for you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head, it is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead." My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I, with mournful tread, walk the deck. My captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead.
I have a $6 question from the Great Bloviator, another good friend of the show. And this question is simply, "Hi, Dr. Hal. What does Bob carry in his pockets?"
Well, I think Bob carries change in his right pocket. When he puts his hand in and jingles it, this is apparent. It's been calculated to be 27 cents. That is to say, not really sufficient to buy anything, but only to remind seekers that money is always fungible and money should always flow, Bob, so that slack, can float from Bob. In the other pocket on the other side is that bag which is said to contain the Habafrop Zipulops essence, which Dobbs smokes in his pipe, famously. Its pungent odor, unlike the odor of tobacco, marijuana, or anything else, must be whiffed to be believed. There is no wallet in Bob's back pocket, and perhaps even the breast pocket of the jacket does not have a wallet. This has not been ever ascertained, but surely there's no need to present ID when you were confronted with Bob. It is obvious, it is more than obvious who he is. Finally, in the breast pocket of the jacket, we find receipts, some sort of faded ticket. It's not even possible to say what it was for, but these things simply accrue by a sort of evolutionary process. They remain until they are discarded. And this is the method of growth, development, and success for future generations, as this planet has always outlined it.
I have a $20 question, Dr. Hal, from our very good friend AgriJag.
Oh, great.
Let me call it up here. The fact that luck is on a plane suggests that luck is two-dimensional. Tilting the luck plane suggests yet a third dimension into which this plane tilts. If one could measure the tilt of that plane, what units would one use to measure it?
Well, in Abbott's Flatland, we read about the two-dimensional world, but they cannot really see it. You have to be in a greater dimensional world, our world of 3 dimensions, in order to be able to see over the lines and bounding forms which constrain the two-dimensional inhabitants of Flatland. Thus, it is necessary to stand outside the luck plane to watch it tilt or to tilt it. The trick then is not necessarily doing that, but to reassume the subplane and not stay on the superplane. Because in our daily transactions, in the hugger-mugger of daily life, we do not need to be in this transcosmic dimension, but rather to deal swiftly and materially with what assaults us on our own dimension. The subgenius has a special ability in being able to visualize the luck plane and to tilt it. But it should be remembered in this connection that those are the luckiest, those are helped by the gods the most, who ask for their help the least. One must be proactive in one's own cause and not expect the luck plane, which tips back and forth widely, to tilt in one's direction as a matter of course. How is it measured? In increments of desire. There is a chance that you will get what you really desire, but that chance also is that you are ignorant of your true desire because you're thinking of only what you consciously can conceive with the self-reflective part of the brain and not with the greater knowledge which underlies it, which comes from your brain as a whole. You are under your own genius, and that genius is always present. And what did you say was the monetary value of that there question that you just got done asking me?
That was a $20 question, Dr.
Oh,
Howe. And
$20.
see,
Certainly. All right.
I got to watch these hand gestures. Did you see it just
Yes,
zoom
yes,
in on
yes,
me?
yes. It
Rotten
zooms in.
cameraman.
Well, while you deal with that, this is an American poem by the poet X.J. Kennedy. In a prominent bar in Secaucus one day rose a lady in skunk with a top-heavy sway. Raised a knobby red finger, all turned from their beer, while with eyes bright as snow crust she sang, high and clear. Now who'd ever think, from an eye-load of me, that I once was a lady as fine as can be? Oh, I'd never sit down by a tumble-down drunk if it wasn't, my dears, for the high cost of junk. All the gents used to say that the white of my calf beat the down of the swan by a length and a half. In the kerchief of linen I caught to my nose, there never fell snot, but a little gold rose. I had 7 gold teeth and a toothpick of gold. My Virginia cheroot was a leaf of it rolled, and I'd light it each time with 1,000 in cash. Why, the bums used to fight if I flicked 'em an ash. Once the toast of the Biltmore, the belle of the Taft, I would drink bottled beer at the Drake, never draft, and dine at the Astor on Salisbury's steak, with a clean tablecloth for each bite I did take. In a car like the Roxy, I'd roll to the track, a steel guitar trio, a bar in the back, and the wheels made no sound, they turned over so fast. Still, it took you 10 minutes to see me go past. When the horses bowed down to me that I might choose, I'd bet on 'em all, for I hated to lose. Now I'm saddled each night for my butter and eggs, and the broken threads race down the backs of my legs. Let you keep in mind, girls, that your beauty must pass, like an old rusty clover that's stained with its grass. Keep your bottoms on bar stools, and always think young, or be left an old barrel with many a bung. For when time takes you out for a spin in his car, you'll be hard-pressed to stop him from going too far, and be left by the roadside for all your good deeds, 2 toadstools for tits and a face full of weeds. All the house raised a cheer, but the man at the bar dialed the number, and up rolled a red patrol car. And she blew us a kiss as they copped her away from that prominent bar in Secaucus, N.J.
We have a $9 question from Dr. Reverend Big John.
Great.
And all friends of the show. I'm always happy to see all these people coming back and visiting us again and again. I have to be careful to not put my fingers up or talk with my hands because the camera
yes.
misinterprets what I do.
No intelligent gesturing with your head.
So if anyone sees me, doing things under my desk like this, it's just me keeping my hands under control so the camera doesn't go wild.
Understood.
If you steal something from a gypsy while opening a mummy's tomb, you would receive 2 simultaneous death curses. Assuming that you can only die one time, one curse would not take effect. Which one?
That's if the curse is death. What I coughed. What was the end of the question? If you steal from a mummy's tomb, but also from a gypsy, which curse will take effect? Which curse will take effect first?
How about if I just read it all over again?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. Shoot, if that's the worst thing that happens to me tonight, Dr. Hal, I am having a wonderful evening.
All righty.
If you steal something from a gypsy while opening a mummy's tomb, you would receive 2 simultaneous death curses. Assuming that you can only die 1 time, 1 curse would not take effect. Which one?
These curses follow you through life. And this is the same with African magic, African witchcraft, witch doctor stuff, which comes into Haiti in Voodoo. I am studying that particular occult science at the moment. But the thing about these curses is they might strike you at the moment that you commit your indiscretion, but it's more probable they will follow you, like the mummy shambling slowly after you, trailing its dusty bandages across the tomb floor, something which drove the late Bramwell Fletcher to madness. He is a distant relation of mine, by the way. But the gypsy's curse also is shown first by little flashes, vignettes, and then closer and closer it gets, you realize that you're being haunted or stalked by something. The Egyptian curse may take longer. After all, it's had a lot longer to wait. I would assume that you are in most danger from the injured party to which you have shown the most impiety and disrespect, regardless of whether it comes from the Romani people of today or from the ancient pharaonic Egyptians of yesterday before the change in the Egyptian religion so disastrously practiced by the pharaoh who did that sort of thing before the reign of Tut and the following unfortunate reign of Horemheb, which does not concern us here.
Well, we just had a question pop in, and usually, a question pops in and I don't read it right away, but this one I'm going to. It's a $3 question.
Very good.
And it is from someone. And the question is, how do you befriend a cryptid?
You're not going to befriend a cryptid by crashing around in the brush. That coy, that shy species will be long gone. You may come on it suddenly if it is motionless. If you are the body in motion, it still has the advantage over you about being hidden. For example, I once, while exploring underground realms, encountered a giant spider sitting in an enormous web, but the web was invisible because of the direction of the flashlight that I was pointing. So this spider just seemed to be right in the middle of the tunnel with nothing supporting it. But it did. Changing the light made the structure of this magnificent cobweb 12 feet in length ascertainable. I would like at this point for you to remind me a little bit about what the question is. This memory has thrown me off. Please tell me one more time.
I can understand that, Dr. Hal. It's a 3-hour question. How do you befriend a cryptid?
Oh, yes. Well, you should be silent and motionless yourself. Then you have a better chance of seeing a cryptid or anything. In Arizona, if you sit in the desert quietly for a long time, other creatures will come out and show themselves. You just don't move, and you have patience. You can't march into where a cryptid supposedly exists and then demand to see it. They are hidden for a good reason, because it assists in their survival. And it's best not to mess with them, even if you do encounter them. For example, that spider I mentioned, I left strictly alone. And then you will be able to have an unusual experience, which you will remember for a long time. This is the true value of coming face to face with an unknown creature. The Arizona caves and caverns are quite extensive, by the way, and many things live in their depths, and they have not even been fully explored. The giant cave system just south of Tucson, Arizona, was discovered years ago, but its existence was kept secret until fairly recent years. That is, two hippies stumbled into it through a hole. But now it has been taken over by the state, and it's called Karchner Caverns State Park, and there's an airlock for you to go in. You're not supposed to disturb all the biological features of this cave, which are still happening. And winds of 60 miles an hour have been known to blow through these caves. Coming from where, one must wonder. In Mexico City, excavations revealed subterranean cavern beneath subterranean cavern with enormous crystalline structures 20 feet in length and more. These can be seen on the internet, or could the last time I looked, and they were in National Geographic.
Well, we have a second monster movie moment coming up, and our theme this evening is houses. So the last one was House of Frankenstein. I'll leave it to the audience to determine what the next one is.
Don't we show a picture of the original house at the beginning of this segment?
Do, as it exists today.
Yes, it still is. So let us go to that clip now.
Well, audience, we do have time for questions. We always, it's like Jello. We always have room for questions. So get those questions into the queue. We would love to see them. We have more questions coming up the next segment. So here is our second monster movie moment. Enjoy, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Yes, please join us after the show for the usual chat and rehash of recent events.
Links, actually, I did post the links once. I'll post them here in just a minute or two when I get back to going.
They're in the chat, isn't that so? Or do we have the chat?
That is,
we have the chat.
I put it in your chat, and I've also put it in the audience's chat.
I see.
So I did a minute ago. I'll do it again.
Everybody's chat. All right.
We're all chatting. We are your intercessor, Hal.
Yes.
We are the go-between between the audience and you as you sit in your chair of knowledge. So, folks, we have questions in the queue. We have time. If you want to get more questions into us, we would love to get them answered for you. So please do that as soon as possible, though. We will spin those wheels. We'll spin those wheels.
The chair of knowledge. Yes. Anyway, continue, please.
We'll spin those wheels a few times, and we'll see, make sure everybody has gotten their stuff in, but get it in soon enough. Anyway, I have a question here from Dr. Penny. It's a $5 question. It's our second question from Dr. Penny of the evening. And is there any hope for a Gosling refrigerator?
Well, I don't know. It depends on the individual refrigerator. I noticed that Radio Valencia, where I do my radio show, the refrigerator smells bad. It seems to have black stuff inside, which may be mold. I wouldn't give that one much of a chance, but it may be only extremely dirty. It may be possible to revive. You have to decide whether you want to invest in a new device. On the other hand, the refrigerator at the center of Reloadio's studio, where I just was the other night, was provided by K-Rob and is one of the most amazingly attractive refrigerators ever seen, of a fire engine red cover and a color and a sort of a 1950s bulging chrome ornamented look. It's full of soda pops and illicit treats of every description. Not everyone who does a radio show must take refuge in salty bag snacks that are dragged in, since the management provides nothing else. But if the refrigerator shows no chance of being revived, although it is technically possible to repair them, and it would be possible, more possible in a non-first world country, America encourages you to throw that old rigid refrigerator out into the dump and to invest in a new one on a payment plan. And you better hurry, because the tariffs for anything made outside the country go into effect on the 20th.
I have a question here from Reverend Drunculus. It is an $11 question.
Mhm.
And let's see, let me open it up. Subject as it is to interdiction by the conspiracy, Habas frappazippalops is in short supply. Can you recommend a recipe for methadone-style temporary substitute? Tobacco, marijuana, cloves, psilocybin, perhaps.
Herein the patient must minister to himself, as the bard says. And this is not the facile answer which it appears to be, because just as every face is different, everyone has a different nose, slightly, all that, each person also has a different metabolism and a different arrangement of the set of chemical receptors, which allows us to enjoy drugs, one of the great inventions of humankind. So it depends, first of all, on what sort of surcease from the stresses of the conscious world, the non-dream world, that you are seeking. Do you wish for the comforting blanket of oblivion, or more for the sharpening of your esoteric senses, so that you may discard the banal and trivial altogether in your own empyrean realm, perhaps while ants crawl on you and someone is pounding at the door? One is never able to be sure. But it is worse than taking nothing than to take the wrong thing. And unfortunately, we have to experiment to find our preference, to find the right chemical cocktail. Habafrop is known for adhering to all nervous systems equally and being equally powerful in all circumstances. But for the rest, we must become our own pharmacist and measure and design in the appropriate quantities until we have found our own succedaneum, our own panacea, which is the elixir we shall fashion all subsequent potations after.
Very good, Hal. Hal, I have a question from someone. It's lovely to see them. Fat Man D is in the audience this evening.
Great.
And she has a $6 question. Now, my answer would be kissing is extra, but perhaps not for you. Would you please sing us a song and blow us a kiss?
Sing a song, blow a kiss. The question is, what song would it possibly be? Let's see. Accessing. Day is ending, birds are wending back to the shelter of each little nest they love. Night is falling, birds are calling. What makes the world go round? Nothing but love. When evening does fall and shadows are nigh, I hurry to my blue heaven. One turn to the right, a little white light will guide you to my blue heaven. You'll see a smiling face, a fireplace, a cozy room, a little nest that nestles where the roses bloom. Just Molly and me, and baby makes three. We're happy in my blue heaven. Moonbeams creeping, flowers are sleeping under a starry way, waiting the break of day. Birds are resting, time for nesting, resting their weary wings, tired from play. When whippoorwills call and evening is nigh, I hurry to my blue heaven. One turn to the right, a little white light will guide you to my blue heaven. You'll see a smiling face, a fireplace, a cozy room. You'll see a little nest that nestles where the roses bloom. Just Molly and me, and baby makes three. We're happy in my blue heaven. Mwah. An unexpected musical interlude.
We don't do that enough. That was quite lovely, Dr. Hal. Thank you very much.
No, opinions vary on that, but some of the people on my radio shows don't like it when I take off into song that way. Oh, anyway, that's one for the records, isn't it?
Yes.
What do you have next?
Well, let me see. I hope you're ready for recitations, because I have some questions coming up for you that might require some. I have one here. It's a $30 question, Dr. Hal, from the Great Bloviator, a second Bloviator question.
All right.
Let me bring that up here. Thank you, the Great Bloviator. You are a great friend of the show. I, too, have a luck plane question. Did I read this to you already? It sounds
I don't know.
familiar.
Continue. Let's see.
Oh, no, it just sounds similar to something else. I, too, have a luck plane question. Oh, yes, of course, I get it now. I read them in order. A plane is a two-dimension which implies a section through 3D space. However, we live in 4 dimensions, which means a section would be 3-dimensional. Doesn't that mean it's really a luck cube or a luck sphere or some other shape?
Well, as we see it here on the show, the fourth dimension is a dimension of duration, so that one may exist in three dimensions for a single pulse of time, but one must continue throughout the course of time, whether forward or backward, and this is subjective, to sustain that. And there you must exert some slight effort to be present in all iterations of temporal pulses, all through whatever time you are allowed to take and seize for your own. Remember, the greater dimension always includes the lesser. So what is popular and proper in the outer dimension can easily be accomplished in the inner dimension. The trick is to look beyond whatever strictures involve us in our dimensional reality in that particular impression of what a dimension is, and act accordingly. Let me see. Ugobolis. In billow lost Poseidonis, I was the god Ugobolis. My three horns were of Similor above my double diadem. My one eye was a monstrous gem found in a moon-sent meteor. Incredible far peoples came, called by the thunders of my fame, and fleetly passed my terraced throne where Titan pards and lions stood, as pours a never-lapsing flood before the winds of winter blown. Before me, many a chorister made offering of alien myrrh, and copper-bearded sailors brought from isles of ever-foaming seas enormous lumps of ambergris and corals intricately wrought. Below my glooming architraves, one brown and endless file of slaves came in from mines of Chalcedon, and camels from the long plateaus laid down their sard and peridos, their incense and their cinnamon. But now, within my sunken walls, the slow, blind ocean serpent crawls, and sea worms are my ministers, and wandering fishes pass me now, or press before mine eyeless brow, as once the thronging worshippers.
Beautiful, Hal. Hit my reset there. There we go. Amazing. Remarkable. All right, Hal, we have more questions. I have another $30 question for you.
Good Lord.
2 in a row. This is from our good friend St. Andrew.
All right.
And let me call it up here. Here it is. Let me open it up. Say, Dr. Hal, my Dobbs head ain't smiling no more. What am I gonna do? Say, Dr. Hal, my Dobbs head ain't grinning no more. What the hell am I gonna do? Say, Dr. Hal, pamphlet said salvation or destruction. Which one do I choose? 'Cause my Dobbs head ain't smiling, and now I got the frowning Bob blues.
Oh, that is sad. What it suggests to me is that your relation to the Dobbs head is out of order. We know that Bob never frowns, but it is possible for you to be upside down. And if it is possible to invert your stance, you may find Bob still grins, perchance. You may find that the Dobb's head grin is not a frown, for that's a sin. Instead, the same all-covering smile, which indicates friendship and not guile. Here is a poem by Keats. Is this by Keats? Yes, I believe it is. Read me a lesson, Muse, and speak it loud upon the top of Nevis, blind in mist. I look into the chasms, and a shroud vaporous doth hide them. Just so much I wist mankind do know of hell. I look o'erhead, and there is sullen mist. Even so much mankind can tell of heaven. Mist is spread before the earth, beneath me. Even such, even so vague, is man's sight of himself. Here are the craggy stones beneath my feet. Thus much I know that, a poor witless elf, I tread on them, that all my eye doth meet is mist and crag, not only on this height, but in the world of thought and mental might.
Wonderful, Hal. Well, Hal, I think the next question, which is a $21 question, nothing to be sneezed at, well, I think is the last question. I've spun those wheels a couple of times, but we'll spin them again.
The last question.
The very last question. Here it comes. This is from Professor CN. Dr. Hal, why don't people use their turn signal? If they did, would we have world peace? Thanks, Professor CN.
Well, that's a good one, Professor. It's always annoying when people don't use their turn signal. Even if you're not in a car, that might help you to cross the street. And yet, suppose you believe their turn signal and then it turns out to be a false signal. You could be hit by tons of Detroit iron in that case, although propriety would have seemed to have been observed for a short time. People often don't use the signal because they turn on impulse and have not prepared for their turn, or it never occurs to them to participate in sportsmanlike driving, in giving the signals to the traffic around you. But it is useful to do that, since not only you, but they may be distracted, and meanwhile the insensate machinery rumbles on, ready to exert deadly force. And on my phone, there are all those car crash videos. So when I'm trying to look at something else, they're showing me videos of multiple cars crashing, trucks going over cliffs, vehicles bursting into flame. It's enough to make you nervous when you ride in a moving vehicle. It is important to keep such controversies from occurring in the first place, and that is to let everyone know what you're doing, so nothing you do is a surprise. Still, they may provide the unpleasant surprise by roaring through a red light to T-bone your vehicle. And thus, I say, one who has watched many bloody car crash videos in high school when they used to show them, it pays to keep your seatbelt on. Although if you end up with the engine in your lap, that is not necessarily a big help. The intelligible forms of ancient poets, the fair humanities of old religion, the power, the beauty, and the majesty that had their haunt in dale and piney mountain, or forest by slow stream, or chasms in watery depths. All these have vanished. They live no longer in the faith of reason. But still the heart doth need a language, still doth the old instinct bring back the old names, and to that starry world they now are gone, spirits or gods that used to share the earth with us as with a friend.
Must have raised my hand at some point in time.
Because you got the Zoom, eh?
Got excited.
Well, did a final question appear in the hopper as
Yeah.
you theorized?
You know, I just checked a second ago. Let me do it again. No. No, let me scroll through.
To our conclusion, but don't forget the after show chat room is a symposium which you can participate in free of charge. Just go to our website. It'll tell you how to get there.
Actually, I'll put that up in just a minute.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah.
I will put that link up in just a minute
again. Going to
again.
put an audio-visual aid up to help guide you to that redoubt.
Well, I will be putting the link in the chat in any event. I just scrolled through to make sure we didn't miss anything, and we did not.
Mm-hmm.
So let me jump out here, and I'm going to, everyone look in chat. Here comes the link for the after show chat. I will ask that you give us about 5 minutes to swap platforms around, and that will happen immediately after the end of the show. So if you need a timer, stay to the end of the show, and that, 5 minutes from there, come on in, and we're happy to see everybody. Hal and I will be in our smoking jackets, and we'll be ready to accept guests.
Come on in. The water's fine.
Right. Clothing optional, I guess, if that's your thing. I've never invited that before. Maybe I shouldn't.
Well, there's only so much you can see through one of these little screens.
I can close my eyes. And have often.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about all we've got for the show. Let me spin one more time because I'm a superstitious man. Let me see. Nope. Sorry.
Well, at Burning Man, where people run around naked, you might see your friends naked and wish that you'd never seen them in some cases that I can remember. But we're completely all-inclusive on this show. Everything goes.
I want to say at one point in time, I could honestly say I knew what every one of my friends looked like naked.
Uh-huh.
So, I would have to take count of that, but no, I think there's a few that I have been gracefully spared the image.
Well, I have new ones that I haven't seen naked yet.
Right.
But in the fullness of time, who can say?
One never knows. Anyway, Dr. Hal, that's all I have. But audience, stick around. We're not going anywhere yet. The end of the show is not here. We have a bunch of stuff coming up. So, but
the big shuffle off to Buffalo climax is coming up. So don't cut us off your screen yet.
I got to watch those hand gestures. We have a new show coming up on April the 20th. That'll be our next show.
Yes.
And I believe that's all I have to report. Next month, Professor Gofflin will be back with us. Professor Gofflin, hope you're having fun out there in the desert.
Yes, we miss her.
Yeah, it's not the same without Professor Gofflin.
And we'll probably have a new member of our on-screen Dr. Hal family. So keep to be ready for that.
We'll see how all that goes, and we've got
Mhm.
premiums coming. We've got new material coming. Oh, it's such a cornucopia of delights that are coming our
Gags,
way.
cosmic truths, you name it.
Right? Let's not forget the cosmic truths. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, guests, thank you for coming tonight. We will see you again in 1 month, and we'll see you in the after show chat. So I'm going to throw that over there in just a minute, and stick around. We'll close the show out right now. Be sure to join us for an all-new Ask Dr. Hal Show Home Edition, April 20th, 2025, only on Twitch. Visit our website at AskDrHalShow.com for information on where to find this as well as previous episodes. Remember, Dr. Hal is only a finger click away.
The Darkling Thrush. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems split the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. The land's sharp features seemed to be the century's corpse outlent, its crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind its death lament. The naked pulse of germ and birth was shrunken, hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, of a full-throated, even song of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, with blast-beruffled plume, had chosen there to launch his soul against the gathering gloom. So little cause for caroling of such celestial sound was written on terrestrial things afar and near around, that I could think there trembled through his happy midnight air some blessed hope, of which he knew and I was unaware. Thomas Hardy.